I think my favorite part about PPE is the tutorials. It's such a unique way of doing things, and I never would have gotten to take any other class like that if I wasn't at CMC and in PPE.
My favorite part about PPE is getting to know the other people in my cohort and really getting into how they think and learning about their perspective in life. There's really no other major where you get to know your classmates so intimately, and I think it's really a cool academic experience.
I think my favorite part of PPE definitely has to be the relationships I've built with my professors. Just the fact that I'm spending 3 hours a week with my professor and 9 other students, and then another hour at least with just them and one other student means I've gotten close to them both on a personal level and an intellectual level that I don't know I would get to with any other.
PPE is not an intimidating environment. I think before applying for PPE, I was very skeptical about how the cohort dynamic would be because of kind of preconceived notions I had about the program. But I think I've learned since being in PPE that PPE is definitely a very collaborative environment and really values every person who is in the program, and we all have something very specific to contribute to the program, which is why we're all there.
I think what you learn about in PPE, in my experience, was it really started with the discussion of what should society look like and how should it be organized, and then it kind of moved into, okay, now that we've learned a more theoretical basis, how have historically other societies or nations set themselves up, and let's compare them, and then we can bring that back to kind of this theoretical idea of what society should look like. And now in the econ portion, it's how do markets play a role in that? So now that we've kind of established this like theoretical basis, looked at some other governments and societies are set up, what is the role of markets in all of this?
In terms of a time commitment, I think PPE is very specific to like each person. For me, I know that I have to take a bit more time to be able to really think about the readings and what I want to write. PPE is a major that requires you to be very thoughtful in the way that you are reading, the way that you're writing, and the way that you're like communicating in class. And so you know yourself best, and so you need to be able to schedule time for you to really be thinking about everything that we're talking about in PPE. And you'll probably get the most out of it if you're really giving as much time as you can to the PPE program.
I think the time commitment is substantial, especially when you're writing. I mean, you have to go through the text very seriously and analyze in a depth that I'm not really used to in other classes. So I can't give you a specific time because it varies a lot, but I've been up very late writing papers and up very early the next morning editing them.
When taking PPE, I really have to make sure that I'm managing my schedule. I'm involved in multiple things on campus, and I know that my PPE work really requires me to be thoughtful in the way that I'm reading, writing, and thinking about what I want to say during tutorial and seminar. And so I really have to make sure that I'm scheduling time in for me to solely be working on my PPE work. But with that being said, I think PPE is very manageable as long as you're someone who is really on top of their schedule.
Well, it varies from person to person, but typically I like to set aside an entire day to write my papers. What that means for me is I have to do my homework before or after that day to make sure that I can really focus my paper when I'm writing it.
So basically, the professors that are on the selection committee end up deciding what track you're placed into. They'll generally do it to try and have like balancing personalities and some, like a variety of interests, just to make sure that the conversations stay fresh and interesting and that you have a group of people that works well together. You don't actually have any say in what track you're placed in, but the professors usually do a good job picking who goes in which track. Yes, you can double or dual major in PPE. I personally am an econ dual major, and I've found it pretty easy to find the right classes, and I haven't really had issues scheduling around my PPE classes. I don't think I've ever had a PPE class conflict with the class that I needed for my major, and if there ever was a problem, you just take it in the alternate semester. PPE also is usually pretty good at overlapping with GE requirements or requirements that could work for your sequence or your major. So I generally find that it's pretty easy to major in something else in addition to PPE.
You can absolutely study abroad with PPE. What it means is generally that you're going to have to study abroad in the fall of your junior year because your PPE courses in your sophomore and in your junior years do take place in the spring, and you can't miss those classes. There are no replacements. But as long as you take that into account and you make sure that you are, just like in all other majors, going to fulfill all your requirements, you should be completely fine to study abroad. I studied abroad in Sweden, and I really didn't feel that it was hindered at all by my being in PPE.
Yes, you can absolutely do a sports team. I play club lacrosse, but there's someone in my cohort who plays football. So it's a lot of time commitment, obviously, but people have found a way to manage.